Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com, BidamountLive.com, and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, December 17th, 2021, and this is our weekly video. We do these each Friday to see what's been going on in the Asian art market, in the auction world, things that are coming up, things that have sold, things that have happened on eBay, and whatever other news there is to talk about. All right, one of the things I wanted to bring up, I got a call from a friend over in Italy this week, and he mentioned to me that there's a sale coming up in Italy in a few days, next week at Pandolfini. And if you want to see the catalog for it, you come over to the Bidamount website and go down to where the catalog section is here in the infamous red box right there. Click that. It'll bring you over, and the catalog is here. It's the first one. We just loaded it up, and there's some very nice things in here. And if you're looking for an auction to check out between now and next week, this sale is on December 22nd, so you still have time to get in touch with them if you need information. But there's some really nice things in there, and there's some. It's a very Pandolfini always gets interesting things from houses in Italy, things that you might not see in other places. They've had some very high-end things over the years. The cover lot on here is particularly provocative. It's evocative. It's a very large Konjang decorated vase. It's about 23 inches tall. We'll get to that in a minute. But at any rate, if you want to check out the site, go do it. And there will be a link in the video here this week to their site if you want to go look at the things. And I just want to go through a couple of the things that are in the sale that it caught my eye that you might find interesting. One of them is this. It's a biscuit figure, Qing Dynasty, 18th century. It could be even a little bit older. This is a very nice figurine. It's over 12 inches tall, and I just love it. It's a biscuit figure, but very unusual with this light blue robes, and beautifully done. Let's move up to the face here. The face on this is just terrific. It's a very expressive Duan with the large head and carrying a root, like a root form root scepter and so forth. Wonderfully done. It's this color because this biscuit is very, very dirty. Whoever buys it is probably going to clean it, which is perfectly fine to do. It's a wonderful thing. And it estimated at 800 to 1,000 euros, which I think is an absolute steal. I suspect it should bring more than that, but this is a wonderful figure for a very modest price. And it's something that won't cost you a fortune to ship because it's only 12 inches tall. So if you're in the United States, give it a look. Give it a look if you collect figures, okay? And then there's also a pair of very nice, they say they're 19th century, a pair of Qing gilt decorated jars. They're about 14 or so inches tall, as I recall, 36 centimeters, about 14 inches. And they're calling them 19th century. Boy, they look 18th century to me. So I would, if you're interested in these, call in with that glaze and this decoration. I would call in and ask for pictures of the bottoms of these, because that looks like the bottom of an 18th century foot right there. That does not look like a 19th century foot to me. I'd want to see more of it to be sure, but get that and get a condition report. Estimated at 2,500 to 3,000 euros, which is not unreasonable. And then this is one of the most curious lots I've ever seen. It is a grouping of 23 Blanc de Chine libation cups. They're all listed as 18th century, and for some reason, somebody at some point applied, I don't know where these came from, they applied these little brass fittings to them like little baskets, like little some sort of basket, but these are nice old Blanc de Chine pieces. If you look at them carefully, look at that one. This one here with the deer on it is exceptional. There's some very good examples in here. They all look early. And they've just added these funny little metal fittings onto them, and I suspect they could be taken off. I would buy them and take those all off. I don't know why they were added. They were probably expensive to put on there, but I don't know why they would have them. I can't imagine that they were done in China. But at any rate, there's a real good variety of Blanc de Chine libation cups in here. If you're a collector of these, you want to check this out. because this one also looks quite good. This one looks very good. This one in the back with the foot looks good. There's a number in here that look awfully good. They look like, to my eye, they look like $700 to $1,000 cups. The whole lot is estimated at 4,000 to 6,000 euros. So if you buy the lot, take out the 2 or 3 that you want to keep, like this big one in the back here that's done like a rhino horn, and keep it for yourself, and then break them down and sell them. All right. Any rate, they have them all dated as 18th century. They are that. A couple might be even a little bit older. They're very nice. And then this is the Quanzhong late Qing to Republic period vase, beautifully decorated, unusually large. It is, as I said, it's 58 centimeters, so it's about 22 inches tall. This is a very big jar, estimated at 30 to 40,000 euros. But as we've seen, Quanzhong pieces are very, very popular right now, and they could bring that. Okay, but it's a very nice one, and it's inscribed. All right, so if you're a buyer of these wares, you do want to look at this. You do want to check it out. It's worth chasing. And then also a nice piece of Duan stone. This is the lava rock that they carve in China. Duan is most typically used in inkstones for scholars' tables, fitted into wooden trays. That's the most popular use for them. But occasionally they were able to mine out big sheets of it that were 15 by 10 inches or 10 by 12 inches or even a little bit bigger sometimes. And they have layers of coloring in them. So what they would do is they would carve through and sort of intaglio, take into use the natural colors within the stone, like this area here and this area here, so that it will stand out. So they carve around it, and they carve back to the dark stone here, and so that you end up with this type of relief work. And this is a very nice example. If you're a Duan buyer, this is a good one. It's been polished. There's these nice pods coming out of it. It's, of course, of lotuses in a pond. And estimated at 12 to 15,000 euros, which sounds about right to me. It is, let's see here, 53 centimeters by 31 centimeters. This is a pretty big piece. It's a pretty big example. And so that's about 18 inches wide and about a foot tall, roughly, or about a foot wide rather, and about 18 inches tall, including the stand. All right, so if you're a Duan stone buyer, you do want to look at that. And then one of the major lots they have in this sale is this throne. This is exceptional. 18th century, probably early 18th century, possibly Kangxi period, but an absolutely stellar chair, absolutely stellar Imperial Workshop. It appears to be Imperial Workshop material to me. Really, really nice selection of hardwoods. A nice yoke back on it, like you see on Ming chairs, but then it has all this carving and reticulation added to it all the way down, and has this rather fascinating base that it sits on, like to elevate it for the person's foot and so forth to rest on. Here's a picture of the back of it. Here's a picture of the side, beautifully proportioned, very powerfully done. Really powerful piece of furniture. And for the furniture's been so strong lately, I'm really curious to see how this does, because it's the kind of thing. There was it was just a fairly simple sofa that had belonged to Pu Yi. There was but a later Qing sofa not long ago that was very finely done, and that thing brought over 100,000. So this is 18th century, superbly carved. The base of it's even superbly carved. The frame that it sits on, it's all worked. All right, and this looks like Huanhuali and possibly the secondary wood here on the base. That dark wood could well be Zitan. If you're a chair buyer, check that out. This is a really great looking chair. Really great looking chair. And I don't know the history of it. They don't, my Italian isn't very good, so I can't help you with that. They say that it's, they think it's Huanhuali and possibly Hongmu is the darker wood. I don't think so. That looks like Zitan to me. If you have somebody that's going to that sale or you're going, check that out. If it was Zitan, it will make a difference to the price, though Hongmu isn't bad either. So so there you go. And then lastly is this box that caught my eye. It's a nice piece of Chinese lacquer, and it is the same form as the box that was in the type of box that was in the Perry collection at Bonham's back in early November. If you remember this, we talked about it. It had a fitted interior. This one appears not to have the lacquer fitted interior that the Bonhams example had, but this one's estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 euros. And the one that sold at Bonhams went for about 141,000 US, I believe, or 140,000 pounds, somewhere up there. It was a lot more than 2,000 to 3,000. So if you're a lacquer buyer and you're never going to find yourself in a position to buy one with the interior intact, this is a heck of a great buy. If it sells with anywhere close to this estimate, I mean, even in that estimate, it could even without its interior, it could bring you could bring 10 or 15,000, I suspect. But if it brings anywhere, down around the 2,000 or 3,000 euro area, it's an absolute steal. But check it out. Get in touch with them. Make sure, double check that it doesn't have the interior. But they don't illustrate it, so I'm assuming it's not there. I'm assuming that there is no interior to this. All right, that's all they're showing. I think they show one picture of the base. Yeah, that's it. And there's the base. It's almost the exact same base that was with the Perry collection example, 2,000 to 3,000 euros. Okay, so it's an interesting auction. There's a lot of there's some very good silks in there. There's some good Japanese material in here. There's quite a few pieces of small jade under $5,000, bronzes and all that good stuff. There's some robes. It's a very diverse sale of nice things. And I would suggest you get in touch with them. If you're not familiar with Pandolfini, they handle some great estates in Italy. A lot of the old money families go to them when they want to sell artwork, even over the major auction houses. They like to do business with this company. Okay, so they do get good estates to handle. The other thing I wanted to mention was there were some absolutely great buys on. I mentioned last week that as we head into the holiday seasons, you can get some great buys at auctions. And there were a number of them last week. This is for those of you that are that get the global member pages. I hope some of you left. Remember, I always say, leave a bid. For God's sakes, leave a bid. Somebody bought this really great 3-piece blue and white 18th century garniture set for just $1,300, which was a steal. This is a nice one. These are fairly big. The biggest piece in here is about 16 inches tall. And the thing is, this is heritage. And as I said last week, I don't think they have an expert yet in their Chinese department. They had somebody that was there. He left. He's now running Doyle's in New York, and I don't think they've replaced it because this is clearly a Qinlong example. It was even tagged Qinlong on the bottom by the dealer that handled it right there. Chinese export. It's an old sticker. They sold just this piece for $1,500. Qinlong 1770, and they listed it in here circa 1900, implying that it's a later copy. And it wasn't. This was a period piece. Period set. All of these look absolutely fine, and this one, and the ones on the ends have they have this chicken skin ground on them that we've seen before. And at any rate, somebody picked up all three of them for $1,300, a steal. And then there were some pieces that took off, and there was this set of 4 enameled porcelain bowls and covers, very nicely done. With let's see, it's a factory mark from the Republic period on the bottom. I didn't look that one up. Do they say saucer marks, 9 characters? They don't say. Went for $16,000. All right, which was a good strong price, no doubt a Chinese buyer. And then this went very reasonably. This is they have it listed. How did they date this? They didn't date it, which was curious. But to me, it looks like an 18th century blue and white jar with Shao characters and apple blossoms or plum blossoms all over it. And somebody picked this up. It had been drilled, obviously, for just $600. The estimate was very, very low. Maybe it had a lot of damage, but this was a big jar. 24 overall height is 24 inches. The jar itself was around 12, which I think was a very good buy. And then this was maybe the buy of the week. And I pointed this out last week, if you're a Japanese collector, to check this out. This was a really nice, large, lacquered porcelain jar, Japanese. It is 15 inches tall, beautifully done. wonderfully decorated piece of Japanese lacquer on porcelain, which you don't see that often. You don't see these very often. Estimated, I thought reasonably, at $600 to $800. Somebody picked it up on the second bid for $310. An absolute steal. That was an absolute bargain. If you're a Japanese buyer, I hope one of you got this, because this was a great buy. I'm kind of kicking myself. I try not to bid on things that I talk about on my videos, because it just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem right, so I don't. But at any rate, this was a heck of, in general, I think I have once or twice, just because I knew I wasn't going to get it, and I just threw a ridiculous lowball bid at it. But at any rate, this looks awfully good. And let's see here. What else we got? The Amari Dish. This didn't sell. This was passed at Bonhams. And if you're a Japanese Amari collector, as many of you know, Bonhams and all the big auction houses post-auction have something to sell. Quite often, if you approach them quietly and politely and say, I'm interested in that plate, you sometimes can get a buy. You can buy it and you get a pretty good buy. This thing was enormous, 18 inches in diameter. This was a really, really, really pretty 18th century Amari dish, and massive, and looks to be in terrific condition. Get a condition report on it, but if it's in tip-top shape, make them an offer. This is a wonderful piece of Amari. Big, gutsy, strong colors. The gilding all looks to be in excellent condition all the way around. Nice varying shades and types of blue, underglazed blue on it. You have this light sort of almost periwinkle blue, and then this rather heavier blue that's been punched in there to give it a bit of a bang on the rim. And then you have all this cobalt area here that's been laid over with gilding. This is a really lovely plate, and is the mark on the back. Of course, they often have spur marks right where you want to see them. And it was estimated at $1,200 to $1,500 with a $1,000 opening bid. And you know, I think if somebody made an offer of $800 to $1,000, they'd probably get it. All right, and then this is the rest of the sale. All of it did. All of the bottom sale did quite well. It was all featured over on the global pages. And there were some nice prices. The Yixing pieces did just fine, even the 20th century pieces, if they were finely done and nicely finished, and so on and so forth. So, but there were also some very nice buys in there. Okay, there was this nice pair of Republican bowls that went for $850, which I thought was most reasonable. All right, and on and on and on. Now, what happened over on eBay last week? Okay, this happened on eBay. This was a nice Famille Rose jar. It had been drilled. It had a drilled bottom, but it was a 19th century jar with this double gourd cartouche on it, and this wonderful sort of lavender ground, and all this Famille Rose enameling all the way around. It looked to be in pretty good shape, other than it had been drilled. Had some script on it. And somebody picked this up for $413. This was a 15-inch or so vase, right? 15 inches tall. That was a good buy. That was a really nice buy. Somebody picked that up reasonably. Should have brought, but again, we're in the holiday season, and that's one of the problems, is that people aren't paying attention. And during the holiday period, I've known people that have gotten some fantastic buys at online auctions because there aren't that many people looking, but especially between now and Christmas. Everybody's got other things on their minds. And for heaven's sakes, go through and leave bids. You might surprise yourself with something really great, like that Japanese piece that was at Heritage. That was crazy. That's silly. All right, now on to this. This was something that did well. We pointed it out last week. It was the Yixing bowl that had been enamel decorated. And these are pretty rare. You don't see these very often. This is a nice old one. Here's a picture of the bottom. Here's the Yixing, the brown clay showing on the foot. But these bowls are rare. They do not turn up very often. Had a lot of legitimate looking wear on the interior. It had been obviously used and loved. And nice looking bats, colored bats on a blue ground with white swirls for clouds, and rue heads around the shoulder of the vase, around the mouth. And somebody paid $1,655 for this. Hopefully they paid their bill. This was a very, very attractive piece of Yixing, and it brought more than I thought. I thought it would bring $1,000 to $1,500. It ended up going a bit over that. But really nice piece, very unusual. And when you see something great and unusual, If you're a collector, you sort of have to step up and buy it. All right, and then on to this was this. They had listed it. This was the seller in was it Jades. I always get this pronunciation. There's Jades Limited. JG Arts Limited in London had this up. They had it up as it's a carved steel, and they dated it to the Tang Dynasty, and it well could have been. The work on this was quite good. These do turn up. They're rare. But they're not exceedingly rare. But they do turn up from time to time. And this was a nice looking one, and it wasn't terribly big. These are not big carvings. But it ended up selling for $2,584. But it looked all right to me. It looked like the carve and the patina and the surface looked pretty good. And it was, how big was this? 17 centimeters tall by 14 centimeters wide. So it was roughly 6 by about 4.5 or 5 inches. These were fairly small, but went for $2,584. But nice looking old carving, nice early carving, and it's got this framing around it of all the seated Buddhas around the outside. Really lovely. And then a central Buddha flanked by a couple of arhats. Very attractive. And then over here to this, I think this was the lot with like 11 of them or something. An album of junks, Chinese Qing rice paintings. The whole lot went for $533. And I think the problem is that it wasn't clear that this was 11 paintings. I think it's 11 was in this lot. It was in 11 antique pith paintings. And these were just 2 of them. And they were 2 of the pretty interesting ones. This is a goose hunting boat. And the right is, of course, a dragon boat. And the goose hunting boat, these are the ones where the fishermen would train ducks and geese, and they would put ropes around the bird's neck, and they would ride along on the boat in these baskets along here, and then they put them in the water, and the birds would dive down, catch a fish, and so that's how the Chinese would go fishing, and they still do it to this day in some parts of China. And the fish would come up unable to swallow the fish because his throat's been pinched with a rope. And the fisherman would then take the fish out of its mouth, throw it in the basket, and then they give the goose a little bit of a treat, the duck a bit of a treat for retrieving the fish. And it's a fascinating way of fishing. No hooks, no bait, no nothing. You go out with your boat and you bring along your birds and let the birds do the work. And they swim down and catch the fish, and then you bring them back up. And then on the right here, you have the Dragon Festival boat, nicely done with the banners and so forth. And there were 11 of these, and somebody picked them all up for $533 US, or around, what does that come out to? About $45 a piece or something. That was a good buy. Like I said, holiday season, people get some good buys. And then there was a nice pair of late Qing, but cloisonne planters. But these were nice looking. They were done sort of in the Ming style, where there's only one color within each cloison and so forth. But it looks like it was done on copper instead of bronze, which most of the very old ones were done. Here are the bottoms. They probably had under trays at some point, or these may have had stone fruit in them. You've seen the pieces where they have they fill them and they put stone fruit or stone trees, like quartz trees, coming out of them, and they would sell them that way. And what happens is, over time, they get banged up, they get knocked around, the tree gets demolished, but the planter that they were put in is still in good shape. So they just sell the planters. And these were quite attractive. And they ended up selling for $779. This was Coast to Coast Antiques here in New England, up in New Hampshire. That's a guy I know. His name is Steve. He's a good guy. He's a real character. All right. And then the Stipple Ground Chinese export mug. This is a nice 1700s example, made around 1770. But it's got the stipple ground on it, which is quite desirable among collectors because it took a lot of extra work to add all that. And it looks like the handle may have been reattached, judging by this photo here. This looks like the handle had been knocked off here, and then somebody reattached it. But other than that, it was in good shape. It had a tiny little frit here on the rim, which didn't bother me. But nicely done, sort of an unusual example. And if you're an 18th century porcelain buyer and you don't have an endless wallet, this was a great buy. $101 plus shipping. All right, and this was a nice example. Without the injury to the handle, it probably would have brought a bit more, probably another 200 or 300 on top of that. But it's a rare type. The enamels were in good condition, and the handle had been knocked off, which is really common on these. And someday, if you had bought this for a modest amount of money, a ceramics repair shop could take care of that repair pretty inexpensively. So it would look like it never happened, just because it looked like a nice clean break with no enameling or decoration to do. Just glaze it over after you fix it. Nice looking thing. And then on to this. This was that really fancy enamel decorated fan with its original box. Early Canton Workshop stuff. Beautiful example. Very unusual though. These swirling devices here. I mentioned last week there was like Van Gogh's Starry Nights. This very unusual pattern. And then these beautiful bits of enameling added onto it, little landscape scenes and so forth, with a monogram at the top and its original box, which is a very fancy box, with a cameo profile on top of it, probably in paper mache or something, but a wonderful looking thing. And it ended up doing quite well, but I don't think it brought too much. It brought $1,629, but when we've seen these very fine examples before, without such a fancy box and without the unusual pattern, and they bring about this much. So I think this was a fairly good buy. The only deal with it, though, is being sold in Portugal, and shipping it from Portugal to somewhere else in the world might be a little bit of a trick, especially if you're trying to get it into the United States, and so it may have kept some bidders away. But if you're overseas and you had a shot at it, I hope you got it. All right, and then lastly is that big dragon rondelle on silk that we talked about last week. I just thought it was a very, very nice example. It was doing pretty well. When I first saw it, it had just gone up. It was only, I don't know, a couple $100 or something. And by the time we got it into last week's newsletter, it was up over 2,000. And it had a ways to go. And it finally sold, and it went for $3,300 on the nose. And this is Blue Rock. They are sellers in Tucson, Arizona. I don't know them. But that was a very, very nice piece of Qing silk. He said Kangxi period. I'm not sure it was Kangxi, but it does appear to be late 18th century. But I'm not sure about Kangxi. Alrighty, now what else is going on? Oh, there's a few things coming up. It's sort of quiet coming up next week. There's a few things that are going to close. One of them is this. It's closing later tonight. Is this Quanjon decorated lidded warming dish. When we first saw it a couple of days, a week or so ago, it was only, I don't know what it was at. It was like $80 or something. And but it looked like a heck of a nice pot. I mentioned it last week because I thought this was a nice piece of Quanjon decorated porcelain. Now remember, this is the same enameling technique as that vase that's being sold at Pandolfini, and the Pandolfini vase is a bit finer, which is why they have a 30 to 40,000 euro estimate on it. But this is just a hot water pot that's 10 inches or so tall, and it's already up to 6,000, and it's not done yet. All right, so it's important to keep that in mind. And how tall is this? This is pretty small, as I recall. Did they even include the dimensions? All right, this is something that really annoys me. If you're doing eBay listings, put the dimensions in right here, nice big bold. Don't include it in the body of text. Drives me crazy. And do the condition. Always do the condition and size separately. Or did he just decide to throw a ruler in here? Let's see. I mean, I know roughly how big this thing is, but yeah. Has its liner. It's got nice twist handles. No ruler, no size, no nothing. All right. Why? I don't know. Sellers are lazy. Don't be lazy with your listings. Fill out all the information, condition report, complete size, all that other stuff. All right. I know you want to get it up there, but take the time to show the size. I'm assuming this is around 12 inches long and about 8 or 9, 10 inches tall, probably in that range. So it's not an enormous piece, but it'll do. It's doing just fine. All right, but he should include the dimensions. And the other thing that's closing is that coral has been doing very well lately, and this is a seller in France. It's got a nice standing figure, Kuan Yin figure, very thin, a very nice early, probably Republic period carving of coral. It's up to $293. He calls it 19th century Qing. I don't think it is, but they're awfully hard to date. And most of the coral pieces you floating around are very, 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 very late Qing or into Republic period. That's the vast majority of them. All right, and that's about it. There's other things coming up. We're going to have them in the newsletter this week over on Bidamount. If you haven't gotten them, if you don't get the news, look at the newsletter page each week. You probably should. This is last week's newsletter. This is all stuff that we pick out that we see that we like that goes in there, and so make sure they all appear to be authentic and whatnot. And you can sign up for it on the page right here and get notified. And it's linked right off the homepage here under Bidamount Weekly Newsletter. All right. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to it yet on YouTube here, please do leave a comment. Everybody, I know you're all busy next week. We'll still do a video next week, but it's sort of the Christmas video, I guess. And we're working on something else that we'll try to get out next week. And thanks to many of you for, I'm glad to hear from you again now that we're doing the identification assistant inquiries again. It's good to hear from so many of you. Some of you have been busy buying things. Wow. In the last month. It's amazing. And some great things. I love seeing them. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all next week. Get your Christmas shopping done and get ready for that. And of course, be careful over the holiday. And but we'll have a video next week right before Christmas as well. Okay. Thanks all for watching. Bye-bye.